Welcome back to the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast. Today we have Carlos Condit on the show, the former WEC champion, former interim UFC welterweight champion, and a man who's a legend of the sport. He's fought a who's who, just like my last podcast opponent. In fact, he's fighting my last podcast opponent, Matt Brown, on January 30th, a fight that's supposed to have happened twice already in 2012, 2018, and finally, hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed, it comes to fruition and COVID doesn't play an issue and injuries don't play an issue, and we finally get to see this match. I've been really wanting to get Carlos on the show for a long time. Another big fan of his, just like Matt Brown. So, let's talk to Carlos. All right, Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Hey, good to hear from you. Haven't heard from you in a long time.
Yeah, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, so congratulations, first of all, for your victory recently with Court McGee at Fight Island. Great fight.
Thanks, man. Yeah, man, it went well, man. It was a cool experience being out there and doing the Fight Island thing.
Yeah, great fight, man. Awesome ending to the first round. Did you notice when he got up at the end of that? When he got knocked down and got up, you kind of stared at him. I think you actually smiled afterwards. Did you notice his nose was broke that bad?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It was gnarly.
That was crazy. And then it was very good of you to you not rush in and just still fight him so smartly, and just pick him apart for the next two rounds and not try and rush in and, because he's a tough guy. And so anything could have happened if you had got careless in that situation. So I thought you fought that very, very well.
Yeah, man. Thank you. In hindsight, of course, we always want the finish.
Yeah.
And, I was like, man, maybe if I'd have pushed the action a little bit after the, at the beginning of the second, I could have got the finish, but it still turned out my way. So that's great.
Yeah. And with that minute break, man, you never know how much someone can recover in that minute. You know what I mean? That's a long time, What about, so I heard you train with Cowboy before that fight at the BMF Ranch. Are you still training there a little bit, or are you just staying in New Mexico with Jackson?
Yeah, man, I did quite a bit of that camp up at Cowboy's place. And I am still training out there. I was just out there last night.
Oh, cool.
It's been a little bit different, a little bit change in my formula, but I'm digging it.
Nice. And the big fight obviously coming up is you and Matt Brown. Just recently had him on the show. How's that? I mean, first of all, you were going to fight him a couple times. I think it was 2012, 2018. Now it's finally happening, which I think is a great time with you guys fighting and meeting up. What do you think about that fight, and how's it going to go? And then how do you think it's different now as compared to if it had happened back in 2018?
Well, obviously I'm excited. It's a fight that we've wanted for a long time. Hasn't come to fruition because of injuries. Unfortunately, he's had to pull out a couple of times. But as you know, it's just part of the sport. As far as the fight, man, I think this is going to be fast and furious. I think we're going to go out there, and I don't see this lasting. I don't see this fight going the distance. Him and I are both pretty. I don't know. We're pretty aggressive fighters. I think we're going to go out there and take it. Just style wise, it's going to be a pretty aggressive fight. As far as how it's different, I mean, we're all a bit older, and I think that and fight years, we age in dog years, man. I mean, this is like however many injuries ago,
right,
that we were supposed to fight. But I think we still got it. I mean, both of us are still we're still hungry. We're still salty. So I think it's going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah, he predicts a dominant fight and even a KO. I even mentioned the fact that obviously you've never been KO'd, and you've had 44 fights, 45 fights, something like that, and you've won by 15 KOs. So half your wins are pretty much by KO, and you haven't had a KO except for the leg kick TKO. So, I mean, even though it's never happened, doesn't mean it can't happen. Obviously, he feels very confident he's going to have a dominant fight and get a KO. Do you think that's going to bring a lot out in you in this fight, being that his style is so pressure-oriented and kind of in your face and aggressive, compared to someone like Court McGee, where you were a little bit more passive and winning the fight more in a smart, strategic way?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think him coming forward and really, pushing an aggressive pace is going to bring out a different style for me. I'm able to fight in a lot of different ways. I fought a lot of different guys with different styles. I think the fight with Matt Brown, is gonna bring out some, is gonna bring out the best in me, honestly, because I think it's gonna have to. It's gonna have to bring out the best in me. He's, otherwise, it might be a bad night for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your style. I'm always been a big fan of you, especially. And I feel like we have not a similar style per se, but it's kind of similar. We both are very aggressive. We're both we've been counter fighters. That you've countered a lot of guys and landed some big things. And I wish I could have had the Brown fight, because I obviously fought Matt Brown. I wish I could have had that Brown fight at a different time, because like what you're saying, had it not been for a bunch of different circumstances, I would have loved to have had that type of opponent, because he is that guy that runs right into you. And for me, I've always been typically a counter fighter. So that would have played into my game plan so perfectly at any other time, given the circumstances of not only other things, but also the fight itself. We went through a lot in that first round. It took a lot out of me as well. So I see that being one thing that's going to make this fight very interesting, is that you being aggressive as you are and how well you counter with your spinning stuff and you got your flying knees, your spinning back fist, your kicks, all these different things. It's going to be fireworks.
Yeah, Matt doesn't have a huge arsenal of things that he does, but the things that he does do are obviously really dangerous. So yeah, I mean it's a really interesting matchup. It's exciting. I can't, fingers crossed. Let's all hope that we, both
sure.
of us stay healthy through training camp, and we, third time's a charm.
So if I was to just ask you, just what's your final prediction of this fight? How do you see it in your mind going?
I feel like I'm going to get a finish in the third. I think I'm going to be able to push the pace. And I'm going to bring something different than, kind of maybe a different approach than I have in my recent fights, and kind of show something that I haven't in a long time. So, obviously I'm being kind of, cryptic with that, because I don't want too much of my game plan. But no, I feel like I'm going to get the finish, later in the fight.
Yeah, and I noticed you were not playing around, but you were actually you were doing it quite a lot. But the southpaw stance, you seem to be real dominant with your southpaw stance in the Court McGee fight. So I can tell that's something you're working on as well. Not that that's a huge strategy for the fight coming up, but I think that definitely helps your arsenal, because, when I fight southpaws, that definitely one of the worst things, my track record, one of the worst parts of my track record is fighting southpaws. So that definitely can play a part, I think, in this fight as well, if you've been working on that.
Sure, man. Yeah, it's just a different layer. Just having a different look. I think is as I evolve as a fighter, I'm continuing to try to add depth, and southpaw. I think that's the most I've ever fought as a southpaw.
Yeah.
In a fight so far.
Yeah, and he tested it too. He was kicking your leg. He was giving you. He was giving you a lot of things to think about and get you plenty of experience in that position for you to take into consideration. So I think that did help as far as give you experience there. How did this fight come about? So I know that obviously you're going to fight 2 times before. Now it's happening again. You just got a big win over Court McGee. How did did they approach you? Did they come up with this fight as far as the UFC, or was this something between you and Matt calling each other out, or how did this whole thing come about?
Before the Court McGee fight, materialized, we were talking about that fight, but he's coming off of surgery.
Right.
So it's basically just a timeline as far as his recovery. The matchmakers have been wanting to make the fight for a long time. So that's, and I had actually called out, Mike Perry, because he's fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler dropped out. I was still in good shape. I felt like I could have taken that fight. So I wanted to get in there and take that fight, but they had their mindset on me fighting Matt.
That's good to know, though. So you're in pretty good shape right now, actually, and you still got plenty of time till the fight.
Yeah, I feel really good. I started camp this week, and I don't feel like I've lost a lot from the last camp. I feel really good.
Let me ask you, when you fought at Fight Island, did that change anything? Was it weird? Was it awkward? I know that, it's obviously not only is it not a crowd, which is what most people think about, but it's like Star Wars. I mean, it's like you're in like quarantines and there's people walking around in biosuits and all these different protocols. And Matt Brown fought in Jacksonville, and it wasn't quite to the craziness that Fight Island, or I don't know if you're fighting in Fight Island or Apex. So either way it goes, it's still going to be a lot different. But where Matt Brown fought before, it was just no crowd. That was it. And a few protocols for the COVID, obviously. He still mentioned that it really threw him off. Like, he was really thrown off about it. Like, he didn't feel as comfortable fighting in that kind of situation versus a crowd. And then you kind of got more in depth with it going to Fight Island and fighting, in that whole situation, the travel and the quarantine and all that. How is that going to affect you? Did it throw you off? And if it did, are you better? Like, is it better that you got that fight out of the way for this next one, be it wherever it's going to be?
Actually, man, I really enjoyed it. It was a cool experience. Very different, but not different a bad way. Just kind of being really isolated, only having to, like not dealing with anybody else other than who was there to fight for fight week. As far as the crowd, I fought in very small arenas. Like when I was fighting in Japan, I fought in a place called Differ Arake a couple of times. That might as well have been the same thing
Yeah.
because the crowd was, maybe there's like 200 people. It's a little tiny venue.
Yeah.
So there's more people, but they're the Japanese fans are silent. I mean, they really don't. You might as well not have a crowd at all. So I've been through it. The strangest thing was trying to figure out the time thing.
Right.
We thought, I mean, we had to report at like 3:45 in the morning to go fight. So trying to figure out the sleep schedule.
That's crazy.
And that was a bit of a moving target because some nights we had to stay up later to do our media stuff. But, man, there's always something. It's always some variable. I'm going to do all the preparation leading up to it, and I'm going to show up and, dude, we could fight in a bounce house on the beat. I don't care. Like I'm going to show up ready to fight.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's an answer that I would expect coming from someone like you who's fought so many times and so many different people. It was surprising coming from him just because he did fight an Ultimate Fighter, which was very similar to that. But, all variables make different things. So I think either way it goes, it's going to be an exciting fight. I'm very excited to see it, man. And I'm fans of both of you. So it's like I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the action. I love both you guys. I love your styles. We all kind of have that same style, and it's going to be a great fight to watch. What is it that keeps you motivated right now? I mean, you were the interim champion. You made your way to the top. You fought big fights. You fought a ton of fights. You fought a who's who as far as in the division back when I was fighting until now. What is it that keeps you motivated to keep fighting? Not only to keep fighting, but keep fighting at the best of your ability and winning these fights. Like, for instance, this next one coming up with Matt Brown.
Dude, I love this. I love this thing. I get to go do jiu-jitsu all the time. There's still so much to learn. I'm learning, I feel like I've forgotten more than a lot of people have ever learned.
Right.
And there's the game is constantly evolving. There's just always new stuff, man. And then I get to go, last night I went out to Cowboys Ranch and, man, we put in the hard ass wrestling practice and got after it. And dude, I love it.
Yeah. Well, that's good enough motivation, I guess. What do you see yourself like? Where at what point do you see yourself stopping? Like, at what point do you see yourself at a position where you're like, okay, this is enough. I've had enough fights. I'm going to move on to something else.
I already have a couple different things that I'm working on outside of the cage. So I've been making that transition for a little while. I mean, I think that's a smart thing for fighters to do.
Right.
I'm still young enough that my body's still holding up. I think I got a few more fights, maybe a couple more years in me, and we'll see, man. But I am, I'm just enjoying the ride right now. Like I never thought that I would go this far. I don't think any of us did. I mean, the sport wasn't even what it was when we started this thing. And what it is now when we started. So, I mean, all of this is just like, this is literally beyond my wildest dreams. This is like what I wanted to do, as a kid, and then it all fucking came true. So, I'm just enjoying the ride.
All right, guys, it's time to thank our sponsors, and our first sponsor is Manscaped, the official trimmer of the UFC, and now the official trimmer of the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast, and yours truly. Precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, and you can now save 20% and get free shipping if you go to manscaped.com, manscaped.com, enter code QUICK at checkout, and you get 20% off and free shipping. So when you enter code QUICK, that lets them know that I sent you, so you support the podcast, you get 20% off, and you get free shipping, so it works out for everyone. You get the best below-the-waist men's grooming product on the market, and you save 20%. Boom, shipped right to your door. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by AKA Thailand, the world's premier luxury training resort here in Phuket, Thailand. Any and everything you need to know is on akathailand.com. And if you have any questions, you can email info@akathailand.com. We'll answer anything that you have. We're also doing a 30% special on the website. So if you go to akathailand.com and book a group training package right now, you save 30%. That's a third off. And you can use it anytime in the future. There's no expiration date. So you can book it now, and you can use it 2 years from now. It doesn't matter. You can also transfer it to a friend if you decide that you don't want to come. So it's a great deal, akathailand.com. You can book, get all the information that you need. If you're not familiar with the gym, here's our commercial.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. You can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
What do you think about these guys at the top now? Usman and Masvidal's big comeback, Colby. What do you think about these guys? This kind of new breed of guys coming back, other than Masvidal, who just had a comeback. But what do you think about these guys at the top now?
Tough, man. Really, really good skill set. Great wrestling base. Able to push a pace. Good striking, man. Just very, very well-rounded, high caliber athletes. So it's very, very impressive guys. Are
you looking to get back up there and get back to these guys?
Yeah, I am, man. I think I feel like if I get some traction, I get some momentum with a couple of fights. Like we talked about with my training, I've switched up my formula a little bit, and who knows? I feel good.
I mean, with Masvidal coming back like he did in 2019, I mean, anything's possible, and you've done a lot. So I mean, there's nothing to say you can't come back and be right there at the top of those guys. I mean, you were already there, higher than Masvidal was. Obviously, you were the interim champ, so I definitely think that was a question that could definitely come to fruition. What do you think about these guys like Khamzat that came in and he's had a few fights but has such good promise and became a superstar so fast? And what do you think about his fight coming up with Leon Edwards?
Obviously, dude is super impressive, man. The Chechen, Dagestani dudes are super dominant. They're very. I know you've trained with those guys. Just their base, probably their background, just the way that they're raised, man. They're super tough. And then you throw them in like a real high quality training camp, and they excel. I'm happy for the guy, man. He's a hell of a fighter. Obviously, he's able to move divisions. He's had 3 fights yet now, or two fights.
Well, I know he's had like 2 within like 10 days or something like that. So he's definitely had 2. I think he's had like 3. And then this is going to be his biggest test, obviously, with Leon Edwards. So this is the one where people are like, if you beat Leon Edwards, obviously he's going to live up to the hype and be the next big superstar. But Leon Edwards is also a big fight for him. I mean, that's a tough fight. So it's going to be interesting to see, the hype versus the legitimacy.
Sure, man. I wouldn't doubt that Khamzat comes out and makes it look easy, honestly.
Really?
With his wrestling ability, I think that, there's levels. There's levels to all that.
How do you think that plays a role, like being so experienced as you are? When people have, not only is he really good, we can definitely say that, even though he hasn't fought per se a really top-ranked guy. How important do you think it is, or how much of a role do you think it is when these guys come out that have so much hype? Do people put them on pedestals more? And do you think he could possibly get in Leon Edwards' head and get a worse fight out of Leon Edwards because he's got so much hype and because he's got, like Conor kind of proved? I think Conor won at least a couple of the fights that he won easier because of that hype. He had their heads going all different ways, and he was getting so hyped. And when you looked across and saw Conor McGregor, it's like seeing a whole different person than a normal opponent. You think it plays a role in this fight and other fights? Do you think that hype is kind of a factor in the fight as well?
I think it can be, depending on who the opponent is. I don't see that with Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards is a gamer, and I don't think that he's looking to spoil the party. But I don't. With some of the guys, like with Conor and with Chimaev, it's not just hype. They have serious skill. So I think more. I would say that the belief in himself, momentum, that plays a big part in all of it, more so than maybe the effect that it has on the opponent.
Yeah, the reason I asked and didn't compare quite with Conor is Conor has the hype, but has already proved the ability. Khamzat hasn't yet. So I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts were, just, because he is kind of going on just hype, considering he hasn't beat that top level guy, though he has showed very credible skills, which you can do against low level guys, but you can also do against high level guys, as Conor showed. So it is kind of one of those situations where Leon's going to face, pretty much kind of more just hype than anything at this stage until it gets proven. But you're right. I agree with you. Leon's a tough guy, and it seems like he's motivated as hell. First of all, hats off to him for stepping up and fighting a fight like this against a guy with hype and not a high ranking. And number 2, he is a gamer. He's going to bring it to him, and he's a great fighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I just think that Khamzat's skills and just his skill set translates. It's whether it's a top guy or whoever it is, wherever they stand in the rankings, they translate. He's got that ability like Khabib does to just dominate in that in that aspect of the game that is crucial, right? If you can dominate somebody in the wrestling game, you have a really, really good foundation.
And speaking of Khabib, he just recently retired, but Dana's now saying he's going to come back. Obviously, that's going to have a lot to do with the fact that Conor's fighting Poirier, and especially considering he mentioned that Khabib's coming back at the same time he mentioned that Conor and Poirier is not for the title. So going into that just real quick, what do you think about that fight with Conor and Poirier? Do you think it's going to be a different fight than before? And do you think Poirier could be – a lot of people's thinking Poirier might edge this fight out and giving him a little bit more credit than they did before. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Poirier that's fighting Conor now compared to the dude a couple of years ago, that's a different fighter. He's really locked it in, obviously. He's really come into his own. He's another guy who's come into his own, in a sense, like he's like a journeyman, that's one of the things that Conor always said, he's a journeyman. But so is Masvidal, but they've had this resurgence. Both of them have had a resurgence, and I think it's going to be a different fight. Absolutely.
Yeah, And then obviously they're probably banking on Conor getting that win to fight that second fight against Khabib. I don't know how a second fight with Poirier and Khabib would go, but Conor's obviously very dangerous in the beginning, so it could be a dangerous fight for Poirier in the first round and for Khabib. So we'll see how that plays out. What do you think about the whole, like, because you were at the top, obviously you were a champion and you've been ranked all different, all the way to the top. What do you think about this whole GOAT thing with Khabib and Jones and this whole battle back and forth of GOAT status and stuff? Like, do you think it's a big issue and it means anything? I mean, obviously Khabib is pound for pound because he's still the champ. He hasn't given up his belt yet. Jones has. But when they start bringing up the GOAT talk, obviously Jones got really upset about that. And I know you're at Jackson and you know him. What's your take on the GOAT thing versus pound for pound and where it stands?
The reality of it is it's all just conjecture. Like,
Yeah.
it's all just kind of like people's opinion. And really, I mean, we could argue about it all day. I think that, based on the fighters that each one of them has fought, I would lean towards Jones. I don't think, but that doesn't take anything away from Khabib. They're both, absolutely phenomenal champions. I don't know. I think they've become the best in the world. They are, they're ultra successful, have made a ton of money. I understand legacy. But at a certain point, it's just like, just be satisfied in kind of just having been the dude, even to be mentioned in the top 5 greatest. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I was talking to Matt Brown and he mentioned that a guy that you fought, George St-Pierre, is probably who he thinks is the GOAT. And it brought up a good part of this because I think, the pound for pound ranking obviously is Khabib's because he's current, but I think the GOAT ranking, I think that's opinionated. You know what I mean? Like, whoever you think is the GOAT might not be who I think's the GOAT. I think it's more of like an opinionated ranking, not an official ranking. And in that case, everyone's going to have a different GOAT. It's going to be anyone. But I can totally see these guys, well, not these guys, but John kind of fighting for it because, he's fought a lot of great guys and he wants to kind of have that legacy, like you said. So I guess it's a good argument to have. I mean, it's better than being the worst, right? I mean, he's arguing about being the best in his mind, but I just think it's kind of opinionated when it comes to like anything above or outside of pound for pound current ranking.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
And is there anybody, because I mean, obviously you fought so many people, is there anybody that you haven't fought that you wanted to fight aside from Matt Brown that you're going to be fighting soon?
That's a good question, man. Tim Means has been calling me out for a long time. Him and I are, we go way back. We were training partners and friends from a long time ago. Every once in a while, Tim's popping up and just kind of, not like direct call outs, but here and there kind of, veiled call outs. So maybe that fight will happen. I know he's fighting this weekend against Perry. So, that could be an interesting one. We're both from Albuquerque. We both train probably, right down the street from each other.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting.
So if he won his fight and you get through Matt Brown, that would be a fight that you would consider taking?
Yeah, man. It's been a fight that's been on my radar for a long time. It's just, timing is everything in this sport.
And getting out of MMA for just one quick second, you probably looked up to at least one of these guys before. What do you think about Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. going at it this month?
I think it's interesting. I mean, I wonder what the motivation is. I mean, they're both competitors. Like, actually, you know what? That's the thing. Like, I'm sure that there's a financial aspect to it. We're all prize fighters, but they're both.
Yeah.
To say that they're ultra competitive is an understatement.
Yeah.
They just do this shit for fun. So that's it's gonna be fun.
I'd pay to watch a sparring session with those guys. And the people that are underestimating the exhibition nature of the fight, can you imagine those two just sparring? Like, it would not be a sparring match. The second Roy Jones hit him, it would just go into like full blown. It would be one of those sparring sessions where people are jumping in, breaking it up,
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, that's usually how boxers spar anyway. I watch boxing, or I watch sparring footage of boxers, and I'm like, oh, that's not a sparring session.
Yeah.
They're fighting.
They're fighting, yeah.
And I mean, MMA, I mean, just depending on where you're at and who, any given day, it could be like that.
Yeah, and then since you did mention earlier about the leaving stuff after fighting in your mind and preparing for it and getting ready. What is your end game? I like to ask this to fighters that are thinking about things after fighting. Like, and when you're, say, 45 years old or 50 years old, what is it that your passion would be? Like, what would you love to be doing after fighting?
You know, I think that I'll always be involved in the sport in some capacity, whether that's coaching, man. I have an interest in helping younger guys come up and, you know, possibly managing dudes. I think that would be really fulfilling, you know, to try, you know, basically use my mistakes and use things that have you know, good stuff and bad stuff to help guys, you know, coming up in the sport. I have a coffee company right now that I've been working on for about 4 years called 100 Hands Coffee.
Oh, cool.
We have a shop. I got to open up some more shops in Albuquerque, maybe even expand. So that's one aspect. I have a lot of interest, man. That's the hard thing is I'm like you know, I'm an ADD case for sure, man. I'm all over the place. So just, you know, I'm interested in everything, but just having the time to focus on any one thing in particular. So it's hard to know where I'll be in 10 years. But, you know, entrepreneurism is definitely an interest of mine.
Cool, man. Well, I have a pretty awesome gym here on an island in Thailand. And so if you ever want to come to Phuket and train and not necessarily train for a fight, but just have some fun training and go to the islands and see one of the coolest places in the world, man, you got to let me know. I'd love to have you out here. Have you ever been to Thailand before?
Yeah, I have, man. I trained out there for about a month when I was 19. I went to Koh Samui, the WMC camp.
Okay, cool. Did you like it?
Loved it, man. It was an incredible experience.
Awesome. Well, hit me up, man, if you ever want to come out here, and you'll be my guest, and I'll take care of you. And I'm really looking forward to your fight with Matt Brown. It's an honor to have you on the podcast. I've been wanting to get you on for a while, and when I found out you were fighting Matt Brown, I was like, how have I not had these guys on the podcast yet? So I had to reach out to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Look forward to your fight, and hopefully I can get back with you again, maybe before or after, and have another podcast.
Absolutely, bro. Appreciate it. And dude, I'm going to take you up on that trip out to Phuket.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, bro. Thank you.
All right, Carlos Condit. Great conversation with him. Big fight coming up. He sounds like he's in shape right now. He was going to fight Mike Perry. So he's ready to go, just like Matt Brown. I think this is going to be an incredible fight. And the thing that makes me the most nervous is that they get to the fight. Right now with COVID and all these different complications and things going on in the world, it's like a lot of these fights are falling through. So I just hope this happens and they both get in the ring and I get to watch it as a fan. The fans are going to win on this one. It's going to be a crazy fight. Both these guys are very scrappy. I think we can all agree that Carlos is very hungry for this fight and predicts a knockout and is definitely going to try and do so. We already heard in the last podcast that Matt Brown predicts the same thing, a very dominant performance as well as a knockout. And being that Matt Brown's a pressure fighter, Carlos is also a pressure fighter, counter fighter. He's all kinds of fighter. He's just a very aggressive fighter in general. I think these two are going to meet in the middle, and it's just going to be fireworks. So super excited about that. Great to have a podcast with him. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment on YouTube. Let us know what you think. We love the feedback. And give us a review on any of the audio platforms. We're on every platform out there. Subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. And we'll see you next time.